Hey y'all, Gary here with Tennessee Stands. Hey, there's a lot that happened this week, so I just wanted to do a quick video update on some things that sort of transpired this week here in Williamson County, and how seemingly that has everything to do with Tennessee Stands. So, in Williamson County this week, there was a school board meeting, which of course you may have seen the video of the altercation that happened between the two guys late at night that made national news, all the way up to the president's office, the White House office, I should say. And look, I'm just going to say this. If you get your news and what you believe to be true from CNN, from local liberal rags like the Tennessee Holler, or if you believe everything that Joe Biden has to say, then there's nothing that I can say right now that's really going to be helpful to you. You just get what you got, and you believe what you believe, and that's fine. But what you should know is that there's a lot more that happened behind the scenes, around and before what you saw in that video. Irregardless, let me tell you the limitations and the extent of Tennessee Stand's involvement in what happened. We sent an email out to our constituents in Williamson County, to parents and citizens, letting them know that there was going to be a school board meeting, and we encouraged everyone to show up. And they did. Over 2,000. Good job, parents and concerned citizens of Williamson County. We sent an email. They showed up. That's the extent of our involvement. We can't control what everyone does and what everyone says. It's not our business. Everybody's an adult, and people are going to do what people are going to do. But let me just say this around what happened there. Our understanding that we've heard from folks that were actually there, not just news media kind of keyboard warriors writing about everything, that guy in the car had been there all afternoon antagonizing people, belittling people, arguing with people. I understand that in the meeting as it was taking place, someone held up a Bible in front of the school board, and this guy was seen in the crowd just mocking and shaking his head like, "Oh, Bible, that's so crazy." This is not a nice guy. This is not a doc. By the way, I understand that he's not a doctor. He's not a doctor. He's a data analyst from a local dialysis center. So the whole idea that this is just one of our heroes in the front lines that's been taking care of all these COVID patients, and this is how these terrible people in Williamson County treat. Oh, please. Look, please. And so now the GOP, of course, is using this, calling people all around the state, you should distance yourself from Tennessee Stands, because look at what happened in Williamson County. They're horrible people. No, not horrible people. They're parents and citizens that showed up. That showed up because they're tired of elected officials making mandates and issuing orders for which they have no authority to do so, and people were there to stand up and speak out against it. And let me just say this to those of you calling around the state saying, you should distance yourself. Don't you think that people who are in power, i.e. the current establishment, what do they want to do? Well, they want to stay in power. And how do politicians attempt always to stay in power? They disenfranchise and demean the efforts of others to make themselves look good. By the way, themselves, the same people who stand by and do nothing, while citizens of Tennessee have to show up at school board meetings and send emails and make phone calls to their legislators because no one's doing anything about restricting these unlawful, unconstitutional mandates that are happening by those in authority who just continue to make stuff up. We move on to Executive Order 83. Because as you know, Tennessee Stands is also a massive spreader of conspiracy theories. Well, let me tell you about Executive Order 83. If the governor of the state of Tennessee doesn't like that people are suggesting that his executive order opens Pandora's box, man, opens the door for for the National Guard to serve in a public health crisis under the direction, by the way, of the Commissioner of Health in some instances, allows people to be involuntarily committed and be diagnosed of a mental health crisis over the phone without anybody even seeing them. Gosh, what else does it do? Remove requirements for inspections for health facilities, and allows isolation and quarantine facilities to be built also with no inspection from the state. These are crazy things. And it doesn't matter what the intention is behind what's being written, because the governor will say, which they sent out an email, oh, these are all conspiracies, and that's not what we mean to do. The governor would never just lock anyone up, and we're not talking about committing people over the phone. Oh, the National Guard, it's just to help a little bit here and there, whatever. Well, we don't care. If you don't want to be held to an account for the things that you're writing, then stop copy and pasting things into your executive order that they're doing in Illinois, in California, in Massachusetts, in Colorado, and wherever else. Because guess what? We don't care that those executive orders exist in other states. We'd like for them to not exist in Tennessee, where we sort of like to think that we actually have constitutionally secured liberties. Coincidentally, the same week, the Department of Homeland Security has now said that folks who have issues with masks and are spreading misinformation about vaccines can now be considered domestic terrorists. And so the week that we can now be considered potentially domestic terrorists, we also have an executive order that allows for the building of quarantine and isolation facilities, the National Guard activation, and the ability to be committed involuntarily over the phone. Yeah, I'm sorry that a lot of Tennesseans, Governor Bill Lee, has a problem with that executive order. Irregardless of your intent, the words in the executive order say things that could be construed to take liberty. And frankly, we're tired of it. And we're tired of the fact that the General Assembly sits by and just allows it to happen. Lastly, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, we are asking you to join the 73 Republicans that have signed on to Speaker Sexton's effort to call for a special session. And we're asking you, sir, I understand you think that these should be local decisions. I get that. The problem is there's no state statute on the books, there's no law by which they are local decisions. And so the bottom line is, no matter whether you believe they should be state or local decisions, they're not local decisions because they're not authorized by state statute. And so you have elected boards of education making stuff up. And guess what? Your constituents, the people of Tennessee, don't like it, sir. So we're asking you, irregardless of how you feel personally about the situation, to allow the legislative process to take place and allow the elected representatives of the people of this state to come together and fix it and actually legitimize themselves as a co-equal branch of government. Guess what? We don't have just an executive branch. We have a legislative branch, and they should be doing the work of protecting liberty and governing the people over which they represent. Lastly, thank you to all of you in Tennessee, across the state, who continue to stand with Tennessee stands. Look, go figure that those in power want to keep it and would use every opportunity, even the words of Joe Biden and CNN, to disenfranchise the work that parents and citizens are doing across the state to protect their children. By the way, children that can't protect themselves. So we're fine taking the heat. Parents are fine. We are all fine, y'all, taking the heat to protect kids from these unlawful and unhealthy mandates that are being propagated over their lives by an emboldened Board of Education who continues to exceed their authority. Listen, please continue. Do not back down. Challenge unlawful and unconstitutional authority. We must demand that elected officials all across the board, from top to bottom, only utilize the authority and do not exceed it, the authority that they've been given by the Constitution, and no more. Thank you for following. Thank you for continuing to step up. Thank you for fighting for our freedoms here in Tennessee. God bless.